2, we go into Wales for the ISCA Enduro. This year, this event is only one day. Typical Welsh weather. It started to rain early this morning and the forecast is for rain for most of the day. The weather was going to make the going very difficult. For the championship and expert riders, their number of laps was reduced back to 2. The clubman's schedule was also for 2 laps, and that's what they had to do. 124 clubmen started and only 21 finished. They were going down like flies. These riders had only been going for about 10 minutes. Bob Jeffries was the marshal, and though the weather was atrocious, he stayed at his post all day.
You better go back to your post.
I know. You missed me.
It's all right, Mick, how are you?
Terrible.
Mick Murphy was also taking photographs. He thought I was missing some of the best bits. The weather was atrocious, not just for riding, but also for filming. Some of these pictures are not very good. So who went the distance? Well, Steve Colville, number 102, was the only rider in the over 40s to finish. And Paul Mail was the only finisher in the 4-stroke class. In the open clubman class, Clive Passingham, number 194, finished in 3rd place, even though he lost 52 minutes. 2nd place went to Michael White. He dropped 39 minutes. And the top rider in the open class, Darren Jones from Thomas. Darren riding a KTM 300. In the 250s, there were 8 finishers. Andy Walton from the Isle of Man finished in 6th place. James Newstead from Cheltenham finished in 5th place. He dropped 26 minutes. James had scored 35 points at the Breckland, and it was 10 today at the ISCA. Suzuki rider Adrian Evans from Ostergunleis finished in 4th place. He dropped 20 minutes on the go-in. Adrian hadn't made the trip over to the Breckland. Yamaha rider Dylan Hughes from Aberporth was loving this sort of going. He dropped only 4 minutes and finished in 3rd place. As the day went on, it was very difficult to recognize a lot of the riders. Runner-up in the 250s, Suzuki rider Brian Collins from Ostergunleis. At the end of the day, he was only 1 minute down, but a slow second test had stopped him taking the Premier Award. Brian was beaten by the TM rider Steve Melville from Leyburn. Steve had also dropped a minute on the go-in, but he'd been that bit quicker on the tests. It had been a good day for Steve, but he hadn't been quite quick enough to take the overall award. That went to a rider in the 125cc class. 8 125cc riders finished. Number 122, Stevie Roper, was in 7th place. Steve had lost 55 minutes. Neil Boyd on the KTM finished in 6th place. He was 37 minutes down. Jonathan Evans from Raider, 5th in the class, but 33 minutes late. Number 127, Jonathan Wardle, was also a finisher. Jonathan Evans's result was provisional. It was thought that he hadn't lost all of that time. Provisionally in 4th place was number 116, Rhys Whittle-Williams from Llanidloes. He had dropped 20 minutes on the go-in. And provisionally, Jonathan Wardle had finished 3rd in the class. The battle for the top 2 places in the 125s was between the cousins Dylan and Edward Jones. Edward was number 118 and Dylan number 117. Dylan's first test would have put him well up in the expert class. He was slower on the second one, but remember, it was a very long day for the clubman riders. At the end of the day, he dropped just 1 minute on the going. Dylan finished runner-up in the 125s and 4th overall. Edward was in a different gear altogether. On test times, he beat everyone in the expert class. In fact, if he had ridden in the championship class, he would have finished 3rd in the 125s, beating his cousin Rowan. Edward was the top clubman rider at the ISCA. It was also a tough day for the experts. Jason Bennett had arrived at this spot before Bob Jeffries, and he didn't see the gutter. Although the time checks were a bit tighter for the experts, they were doing the same 2 laps as the clubman class. 70 experts started the day and only 30 finished. Bob Jeffries was willing to help anyone. Stephen Grimshaw got bogged down. The Honda was quite heavy and it drained his energy. He didn't make it to the end of the day. He got in some good weight training. And the same goes for Peter Hannis, riding a wet pants Honda XR. But Peter struggled on to the end of the day, and he was the only rider to finish in the open 4-stroke class. In the 400cc 4-stroke class, there were 4 finishers. David Lott was down in 4th place. He'd lost 46 minutes. Andrew Knappman, riding a Yamaha 400, was 24 minutes late and finished in 3rd place. Chris Tett from Dudley, riding a Yamaha YZF, was 18 minutes late but took runner-up in the class. And the top 4-stroke rider, again on a Yamaha, it was John Morgan from USC. John was 13 minutes down on the going. In the 250s, John's teammate Rob Smith had a good day. He was 3 minutes down, finished 6th in the class and 9th overall out of all the experts. Trevor Jones in the Genesis Honda team had dropped 4 minutes on the going but beat Rob by quite a big margin on the second test, and Trevor finished in 5th place. Number 70, Gary Flowers from the Isle of Man, only 1 minute down. He finished 4th in the 250s and 7th overall. The Breckland winner, Cy Higgins, found the going tough. He lost a minute, but was quicker on the test than Gary Flowers, so Cy finished in 3rd place. Later in the year, Cy would be riding on home ground at the Dartmoor Enduro. That event would take place early in August. The rider who was runner-up this weekend did not ride at the Breckland. It was George Brent from Croydon, and at the Breckland weekend he was riding in the Gilles Lollet Classic. The practice over in France must have done him good because George was clean on the going. And the best 250cc rider, a Welshman, Neil Williams from Brecon. This was the sort of going which Neil really enjoys. 6 out of the top 7 riders in the 250s were all on Yamahas. Although Neil won his class, he was not the top expert rider. In the 125s, only 7 riders finished. Stuart Mundell was in 4th place. He dropped 10 minutes on the going. Stuart riding a Yamaha 125.
25.
And in 3rd place, riding a Honda CR, Wayne Mundell. Wayne dropped only 1 minute on the going. Two 125cc riders went clean. Win Hope was one of those. Win riding a Suzuki. Hope he slowed just a little on his second test, but still finished runner-up in the class. And the top 125cc rider and the rider who took the Premier Award, Simon Evans from Wrexham, on a Yamaha 125. Simon was clean on the going, but down in 6th place after his first test. On lap 2, he did by far the quickest time, but did have a few close shaves with some of the trees. The championship riders were very lucky, having to ride only 2 laps instead of 3. Geraint Jones had been round long enough to know that this was a good event to miss. He was refuelling for his 2 sons Rowan and Dylan. Wayne Westwood had to retire quite early in the morning. The last time check of the lap was much tighter than the riders expected, and there was a bit of a rush to get through this puddle of water. David Knight wasn't taking any chances. Most of the championship riders got in clean, but 6 failed to finish. John Deacon won the open 4-stroke class and finished 11th overall. I don't think John liked the weather. He preferred the sands of the Dakar Rally. Jason Frasor on the Yamaha YZF was the top 4-stroke rider and finished 5th overall. It was a very good result for Jason. In the 125s, only 4 riders went clean. Joel Mitson finished in 4th place. He was rather unlucky to have a slow second test. Geraint's son Rowan was clean on the go-in, and he beat Joel by about 50 seconds to take 3rd place. Rowan had started on the same minute as Mark Vaughan. Vaughan stayed clean on the go-in, and his first test was just over 8 minutes. On his second test, he was a full minute slower, but that was the way it was going for everyone. Vaughan finished 2nd in the class and stretched himself a little bit on the day. And the best 125cc rider at the ISCA, Tim Lewis, he'd already won at the Breckland. Tim rode the first lap wearing a pair of yellow over-trousers, very similar to the ones issued by Powys County Council. On the first test, he did the 3rd fastest time overall. On lap 2, he was over a minute slower, but won the class quite convincingly, beating Mark Vaughan by over 45 seconds. In the 250s, only one of the Knight brothers was over from the Isle of Man. Dewan was still injured, so David was riding, and he was number 15. David had a good first test, but on lap 2 he was nearly 2 minutes slower, and he finished 5th overall in the 250s. Suzuki rider Wyn Hughes finished in 4th place today. He was rather slow on his first test, 8 minutes 23 seconds, and some of the top riders were well under 8 minutes. On his second test, Wyn was only 20 seconds down on his first time. He finished the day 12 seconds up on David Knight and took 4th place in the 250s. Last year, the second day of the ISCA was quite a problem for Rob Sartin. His chain came off on the test and jammed against the sprocket, and he only just managed to finish. He was hoping for better things today. On the first test, 6 riders went round in well under 8 minutes, but Rob was not one of those. Something had happened on the first test. Rob's time was 8 minutes 13. He was nearly a minute off the leader. Carl Tiley was on the same minute as Rob. Last year, Carl crashed on the first day of the ISCA and scored no points from the event. It was going better for him today, though, and on the first test his time was 7 minutes 37. On lap 2, both riders were slower. Tiley's time 8:26. Sartin 8:29. Rob finished 3rd in the 250s and 4th overall. He'd been beaten by Tim Lewis. And Carl was 2nd in the 250s and 2nd in the championship. So who won this second round of the British Championship? Well, it was none other than A.D. Smith. And he'd won the ISCA 12 months ago. A.D. had got his fans all over the course. Sartin's first test 8 minutes 13, Tiley 7:37, but A.D. beat them all 7 minutes 18. A.D. knew that something had happened to Rob Sartin on the first test. On lap 2, A.D. did the quickest time again. He was the only rider to go round in under 8 minutes. A.D. scores maximum points at the ISCA and increases his lead in the championship.